When I opened the doors to my new Beverly Hills showroom, I expected silence and sunlight. Instead, I heard my sister's voice echo across the marble, "Dad promised this to me, it's my wedding gift." Mom smiled. It's only fair. They were standing in the space I'd built from 15 years of work planning a wedding that wasn't mine in a place I owned. I didn't shout. I just smiled because they had no idea what I'd already prepared. Before I tell you what happened next, ask yourself this. What would you do if your own family tried to steal your life's work? I wasn't born into wealth. The Crawfords had comfort, steady jobs, a decent home, but not the kind of money that built dreams in marble and glass. That came later after years of me sketching dresses on grocery receipts and staying up till 3 a.m. sewing under a flickering kitchen light. While other kids spent their summers at the lake, I spent mine learning pattern cuts from thrifted gowns. By 25, I was designing for a luxury house in New York. By 35, I'd left to start my own line, Rebecca Atelier, a brand that believed elegance didn't have to scream to be seen. The showroom was supposed to be my victory lap. 3 floors of glass, ivory, stone, and soft light right in the heart of Beverly Hills. Every inch of it carried a piece of me, the hand-carved oak counter, the gold stitching on the curtains, the scent of sandalwood and clean cotton I'd chosen to calm nervous clients. I wanted it to feel like power and peace could coexist in one place. And after years of proving myself in boardrooms filled with men who thought fashion was frivolous, I'd finally done it. But family never let me stay in peace for long. Rachel, my younger sister, was the opposite of everything I'd had to become. Free-spirited, impulsive, always finding herself through new jobs and failed side hustles. Our parents treated her like glass. They said she just needed time support encouragement. Support usually meant my money, my contacts, my name on the lease she couldn't afford. When I refused, I was selfish. When I agreed, I was cold about it. I'd stopped trying to win that game years ago. Still, a part of me wanted to believe time had changed us. When I sent out the invitations for my housewarming, I included them all. Rachel, Mom, Dad. It wasn't about forgiveness. It was about closure. Maybe if they saw what I'd built, they'd finally understand that I wasn't the problem child. I was just the one who stopped waiting for approval. 2 weeks before the opening, I took my best friend Sarah to see the nearly finished showroom. She'd been with me since design school, the voice of reason when I lost myself in deadlines. "It's beautiful," she said, running her hand across the silk drape near the window. "Feels like you finally built something no one can take from you." I laughed a little too quickly. "Let's hope they don't try." Sarah smiled. "They will, you just won't let them win this time." Later that evening, I got a text from Mom. "Your sister's engagement dinner is next week. Hope you'll come, it's her big moment," I replied. Of course. Simple, polite, restrained, the way I'd learned to keep peace. She followed with, "You should see her designs. She's getting inspired by you." I froze. Designs? Mom sent a picture, a sketch of a wedding dress, delicate lace, elegant silhouette. It was good, too good, and the signature at the bottom, R. Crawford Atelier. I tried to convince myself it meant nothing. Maybe she was just playing around naming her Pinterest board. But deep down, something cold settled in my stomach. Rachel had always admired what I did. She'd also always believed admiration gave her access. That weekend, I stopped by our parents' house for Sunday lunch, hoping to clear the air before my event. The same house I'd grown up in, still smelling faintly of lemon polish and old carpet. Rachel was there laughing, showing Dad her phone. When she noticed me, her grin flickered but didn't fade. "Hey, superstar," she said, waving. "Guess what? I might launch my own mini collection." I smiled tightly. "That's ambitious." "Yeah, it's called R. Crawford Atelier." "Cool, right? Like a family legacy thing." Dad chuckled. "We think it's sweet she's following your path." "Sweet?" I asked. "Or confusing?" Rachel's tone sharpened. "Don't be territorial, Beck. You don't own creativity." Mom jumped in, voice sugar soft but cutting. "Rebecca, please don't make this into a competition. She looks up to you." And just like that, the familiar script replayed the one where I was too rigid, too proud, too something. When I left that afternoon, I sat in my car for 10 minutes staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back at me wore calm like armor, but I could feel the storm building behind her eyes. I whispered to myself, boundaries aren't cruelty. their survival. Then I started the engine. Over the next week, the tension thickened. Rachel posted sneak peeks of her upcoming bridal collection on Instagram, my designs recolored, renamed Stolen. I messaged her privately, "Take them down." She replied with a heart emoji. Mom texted again, "Don't be harsh, it's just online buzz." And Dad called laughing, "Let her dream, Beck. You can afford to share a little spotlight." Share. That word stung more than insult, because what they saw as sharing was erasing. 2 days before the housewarming, I stayed late at the showroom finalizing lighting tests. The city outside was wrapped in gold dusk. My reflection shimmered in the glass walls like a ghost haunting her own success. For a moment, I imagined the laughter of guests, the soft music, the clinking of glasses, the night I'd finally celebrate without apology. I didn't know that by morning, that dream would belong to someone else. The first warning came on a Tuesday morning. Sarah burst into my office holding her phone like it was evidence. "You need to see this," she said. On the screen was an Instagram reel my showroom filmed from the mezzanine, the same staircase I'd chosen for the runway preview. Rachel's voice narrated over upbeat music. "Big things coming soon. My own brand is finally taking shape. Can't wait to show you all where dreams become real." The caption read, "R. Crawford Atelier, opening soon." For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. I watched myself, or rather her, pretending to be me, walking across the same marble floor, the same mannequins, the same drapes. Sarah whispered, "She filmed this here, didn't she?" I nodded, my jaw tightening. Last weekend when I was in New York for the supplier meeting. My phone buzzed with new notifications. Aunt Patty commented, "So proud of both my girls." Following in Big Sis's footsteps, another said, "Wow, Rebecca's brand expanding already." Except it wasn't expansion, it was invasion. I texted Rachel immediately, "Take that video down. You're using my showroom." A minute later, the reply popped up. "Relax, it's just PR. You get exposure, I get a little attention. Win-win." I stared at the message until my vision blurred. That night, I called my parents. Dad answered, his tone cheerful, like nothing was wrong. "Hey, champ, Rachel told us about her project. Isn't it exciting, Dad? She's using my studio, my designs." "Oh, come on, Beck. It's all family. No need to get territorial." Mom cut in. "You should be proud. You've inspired her." "Proud," I repeated. "She's impersonating me online." "Don't exaggerate," Mom sighed. "You're always so dramatic about business stuff." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. For days, I tried to drown it out to focus on fittings on the final details before the housewarming. But the whispers kept finding me. A client emailed, "Are you launching a bridal line?" A supplier asked. Should we redirect shipments to Rachel's address? Every message tightened the noose. On Friday, I found an envelope on my desk, no stamp just slid under the door. Inside was a printed proposal joint venture agreement. Rebecca Atelier K.R. Crawford Atelier. My name was there. My signature too. Except it wasn't mine. I sank into the chair, the air gone from my lungs. I ran my finger along the forged signature, perfect strokes, practiced loops. Someone had taken their time. Sarah whispered, "She didn't just want attention, she's setting up something bigger." And I knew she was right. That evening, I drove to my parents' house. The sky was bruised purple, the kind of dusk that makes every streetlight feel colder. Rachel was there, curled on the couch, scrolling her phone. My parents sat nearby, pretending to watch TV. When I walked in, Rachel looked up, her smile tight. "You've been ignoring me." "I've been busy," I said flatly. "Busy undoing your mess." She rolled her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic. The paperwork was just a mock-up for investors, with my forged signature." She shrugged. "Technicalities." Dad's voice cut through the room, deep and measured. "Girls, this is not worth fighting over. Rachel's just trying to start her future. You've had yours." That sentence hit like a slap. "You think success is a pie I took too much of?" I asked. Mom said softly, "Your sister's getting married, Rebecca. She needs stability." I laughed sharp bitter. "So stability means stealing mine." Rachel stood up defiant. "You've always made everything about you. You got the career, the house, the name. You can't let me have one thing." One thing, I said quietly. That one thing is my life's work. She crossed her arms. Then maybe you shouldn't have built it where everyone could see it. The silence that followed was unbearable. I left before the tears could show. Outside, the night air hit my face cold and metallic. I could hear my mother's muffled voice through the door, "She'll calm down." But they didn't understand. This wasn't rage. This was clarity. I finally saw them as they were a family that only loved me when I was useful. The next morning, I found Sarah waiting at the showroom. She'd already changed the locks. "You need boundaries, not apologies," she said simply. I nodded, still shaken. "Boundaries I can enforce." She smiled faintly. "Then start there." I walked through the showroom, running my hand along the marble counter. Everything smelled of lavender polish and fabric glue, my scent, my mark. Rachel wanted to claim this as her wedding gift, her stepping stone, but I had something stronger than sentiment. I had proof, and I was done staying quiet. The day before the housewarming, I drove to the showroom early. The air outside was sharp, the kind that makes every sound echo harder. From the parking lot, I could already hear voices inside, laughter, clinking glass, the soft hum of music. For a moment, I thought Sarah had arrived early with the event team. But when I opened the doors, the scent of fresh roses and champagne hit me first, followed by a voice that made my stomach drop. Rachel's. "White orchids across the main hall," she said, pointing toward the railing. "And the runway lights should be dimmer. We want something soft, romantic." I froze in the doorway. My own sister stood in the middle of my showroom wearing a pastel blazer, clipboard in hand, her wedding planner beside her, taking notes like this was her venue. My parents stood near the fitting room area, chatting with the caterer. "Rachel," I said quietly. She turned bright smile eyes sparkling. "Oh, you're early. What are you doing here?" She laughed softly like I'd asked the silliest question. "Final walkthrough. Mom and Dad told you, right?" My voice tightened. "Told me what? That this place?" She gestured around the chandeliers. "The ivory drapes, the marble floor still shining from yesterday's polish, is my wedding gift." Dad cleared his throat. Mom added gently, "It's only fair, Rebecca. You're always traveling, barely here. This space is perfect for her to start her life." For a long moment, I couldn't move. It was like the air had turned thick, too heavy to breathe. I looked at each of them, my family standing in the space I'd built, deciding its fate without me. "This isn't a gift," I said finally, voice calm but cold. "It's my property. Every bill, every permit, every inch of this place was built with my name on it." Rachel crossed her arms, tilting her head in that old pitying way she used to when we were kids. "You don't need it, Beck. You live alone. You already have everything. Why not let someone else have a chance for once?" "A chance," I repeated. "You mean my life's work?" Dad sighed, stepping closer. "Don't make this ugly. We're doing this for family. Rachel's wedding is a new beginning, and you're stable enough to start over. That's what family does, shares." I let out a small, humorless laugh. "Shares? That's what you call taking what doesn't belong to you," Rachel frowned, her voice rising. "You're being dramatic. You don't even understand how important this is to me. Connor and I cut her off. "Connor doesn't get to live in a showroom I designed with my blood and sweat." Her expression hardened. "You think you're better than everyone. Always have." Mom stepped forward, her voice sharp beneath the sweetness. "Rebecca, please stop this. You're ruining what should be a happy day." I stared at her, at the woman who'd once punished me for a dress Rachel lost. It was all the same story, just with higher stakes. Without another word, I walked to the side table, opened my laptop, and pulled up the ownership documents. My hands didn't shake. I turned the screen toward them. "See this? Every permit, every payment, every design registered under my name. No co-owner, no transfer." Dad's voice dropped low and stern. "You can't do this to your sister." I looked straight at him. "I'm not the one doing anything." The silence that followed was the kind that rearranges everything like the first crack in glass before it shatters. Rachel's voice broke through it, trembling but full of venom. "You're heartless. I just wanted to start something beautiful, and you turned it into a war." I didn't respond. Instead, I reached for my phone and dialed Alex, my lawyer. "Hi, it's Rebecca. Send me all the property files and brand certificates. I want printed copies by tonight, and call the security team. Change every lock, every passcode. Effective immediately." Dad's face went red. "You're crossing a line." I turned toward the door, my tone steady. The line was crossed when you decided I didn't deserve to keep what I built. No one moved. I stepped aside, gesturing toward the exit. You have 10 minutes to leave. After that, I'll consider it trespassing. Rachel's lips parted, stunned. Mom started to cry, whispering something about family, about forgiveness. But I didn't listen. I'd heard those words too many times before, always used to excuse what they took. They left slowly, one by one. Rachel glared at me as she passed, tears streaking her mascara. Dad muttered something about losing sight of what matters. Mom turned back once more, eyes glossy, whispering, "You'll regret this." The door closed behind them with a soft click. For a few seconds, I stood perfectly still. Then I exhaled a shaky breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The room was silent again, my silent. I sat down on the staircase and stared out at the glass walls, the city beyond, glowing gold in the afternoon light. My chest felt hollow, but not empty, just quiet. The phone buzzed. Aunt Patty, then Uncle Mark, then a cousin I hadn't heard from in years. Each message the same chorus, family comes first. Don't be selfish, it's just a house. I set the phone face down. They didn't understand. It was never about the house. It was about being seen finally as someone who earned what she had. Outside, the sun began to dip behind the skyline, painting everything in amber. I stood, straightened my blazer, and whispered to the empty room, "If proof is what they need, then proof is what they'll get." That night, I didn't cry. I sat at the long glass table in my apartment, surrounded by documents, invoices, payment records, every tangible piece of proof that I'd built my brand and showroom from the ground up. The soft hum of the city outside my window felt distant, almost muted. Every click of the pen, every paper shuffled, was a reminder they had underestimated the wrong woman. I called Alex, my attorney. He picked up on the second ring, Rebecca. "They tried to take it," I said simply. "The showroom. My sister, my parents, they're calling it a wedding gift." He exhaled slowly. "You have the full documentation, every receipt, every signed contract, every transfer. Then we lock it down," he said. "I'll file immediate notice with the property board and register all current trademarks as pending legal protection. If they try to move anything, it'll flag." "Do it tonight," I said. After we hung up, I stayed there for a long time, staring at the pile of evidence in front of me. Each page carried years of work, proof of survival, not privilege. My hands didn't shake anymore. They were steady, cold, focused. The next morning, I met Sarah at the showroom. She'd already changed the locks, installed biometric entry, and set up motion alerts. She held up her phone. "Security feeds running on a cloud backup now. You'll get an alert if anyone steps inside." I nodded. "Perfect." Sarah studied my face. "You okay? I'm not angry anymore," I said. "Just done." She smirked, recognizing the tone. "Good. Anger burns fast. Precision burns clean." For the next 3 days, I worked like nothing had happened. I reviewed designs, approved press invitations, double-checked lighting tests. But underneath every calm email, every phone call, I was building an invisible wall. When Alex called with updates, he sounded impressed. "The paperwork trail is airtight. You've even got brand registration history, payment transfers, tax filings. They can't touch it without exposing themselves. Keep everything ready," I told him. "If this turns ugly, I want the truth in writing before anyone starts rewriting it." It didn't take long. By Thursday, I started getting strange inquiries. A supplier asked if he should redirect fabric shipments to R. Crawford Atelier. Another email came from a small investor thanking me for the opportunity to join the expansion project. Attached was a scanned contract complete with my digital signature. It wasn't mine. I forwarded everything to Alex. "She's doing it again." He replied within minutes. "We'll include this under fraud documentation. Keep collecting. Don't confront her directly." But staying silent wasn't easy. Every part of me wanted to march to my parents' house, slam the fake contracts on the table, and scream. Instead, I printed everything, filed it neatly, and placed it in a folder labeled "For Court." That night, Sarah came over with takeout and 2 glasses of wine. She was one of the few people who didn't flinch when I went quiet. "You know," she said between bites, "they think this is still about family drama." "It's about ownership," I said. "It's about control," she corrected gently. "And you finally taking it back." The next morning, I drove to the showroom early. The sky was soft gray, the street still half asleep. I walked through each floor, checking lights and fixtures. It wasn't paranoia, it was instinct. I stopped at the mezzanine where I'd once imagined my grand opening speech. The space was so still I could hear my own breath bounce off the walls. For a moment I thought about what Mom said, "It's only fair." Fair. As if fairness meant undoing everything I'd built so someone else could start fresh. No, this wasn't about fairness. It was about boundaries, and I'd spent too long living without them. I took one last walk through the studio, then pulled out my phone and called the security company. "This is Rebecca Crawford," I said. "Activate the 24-hour watch, record everything, and send a duplicate feed to my lawyer's office." By the time I left the showroom, no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like a fortress. That evening, Alex texted restraining order paperwork ready. "One more incident and we file." I replied, "There will be one. Trust me." Then I placed my phone down, exhaled, and looked out the window at the city lights reflecting off the hills. The calm felt unnatural but powerful, like the air right before a storm breaks. And deep down, I already knew the next time Rachel stepped foot in my showroom, it wouldn't end quietly. I woke before dawn, the city still awash of gray and blinking taillights. The alert hit my phone at 6:12 a.m. Motion detected main hall, 8 subjects. I was already dressed when the second alert came in with a live still. Rachel in a cream blazer, chin up a clipboard pressed to her chest. Around her stood a man in a navy suit, a woman with a tablet, and a small cluster of well-dressed strangers. The caption she'd added to the private event invite flashed in the screenshot Sarah forwarded to me, "Private Fashion Investment Preview, R. Crawford Atelier." I didn't run. I drove with both hands on the wheel, steady, listening to the hum of the engine like a metronome, keeping me from shaking apart. The security feed rolled on my dash screen, Rachel pacing the marble like a host, the group trailing her filming, nodding. She gestured toward the skylight, the mezzanine, the gold-stitched curtains, as if pointing to rooms in a childhood home. "Design is legacy," she was saying, voice bright. "Our first expansion will feature 3 locations. Early investors receive premium placement on our launch list. I smiled at the glass, humorless and small, the kind of smile that warns a storm is about to arrive. I parked a block away, took the folder from the passenger seat, and walked the rest of the distance with my heels hitting the pavement in even clicks. By the time I reached the door, I could hear applause drifting from the mezzanine. I keyed in the lock, accepting my print. The room smelled of lilies and new fabric, that clean electric scent of possibility. 8 heads turned as the doors closed softly behind me. Rachel's face flickered. Then she recovered. "There she is," she said, spreading her arms like we were partners on a stage. "Everyone meet Rebecca, my sister, the inspiration behind our brand." "Not our brand," I said. The man in navy extended a hand, half hesitant. "We were told this is a pre-launch walkthrough. It is..." Rachel cut in too fast. "A family venture." Let her finish." The woman with the tablet said, eyes narrowing as she studied me. I stepped forward slowly, heels whispering over the marble, and rested the folder on the display table. The morning before my housewarming, I said, voice. Even I found my sister standing in my showroom. "She told me Dad promised this to me. It's my wedding gift." Mom nodded and said, "It's only fair." I didn't shout then. I don't need to shout now. Rachel laughed brittle. She looked at me, searching for soft ground. "She's overwhelmed. We all are." I lifted the first sheet and set it down. Lease agreement, my name alone. Next brand. Registration dated notarized. Next design licenses, payments, invoices. Each page slid across the glass with a quiet, certain sound. I smiled, I said, lifting my gaze to the group because you had no idea what I'd already prepared. The woman with the tablet exhaled almost a laugh. "Those are hard copies. And here are the digital mirrors," I said, tapping my phone. "Time-stamped, backed up, and currently synced to my attorney and the financial investigator on this case." The man in navy looked at Rachel. "You said this was your brand." "It is." Rachel snapped, a tremor betraying her. "We're sisters." "We family doesn't equal ownership," I said quietly. "If someone forged my signature in any contract you received, consider this your warning to withdraw." A hush washed across the mezzanine. Even the AC felt like it lowered its voice. Rachel's smile hardened. "Rebecca, you can't do this in front of guests." "You did this in front of guests," I said. She took a step toward me, chin angling up like it used to when we were children, and she wanted the last piece of cake. "You have the career, you have the showroom, you have the name. Are you really going to deny me a chance at one day that feels like mine?" I looked at her. Not around her, not past her the way I always had to avoid the guilt in her eyes, but right at her. "You didn't ask for a day. You brought a crowd to a life you didn't build. Don't be cruel," she said, voice breaking. Dad promised doesn't sign a lease," I said. She threw her hands up. "You're impossible." The woman with the tablet cleared her throat. "Ms. Crawford, Rebecca, are you filing legal action?" "I filed documentation the night your first emails hit my inbox," I said. "If you've wired funds, your banks will contact you. If you haven't, walk away knowing you just saved yourselves a headache." The man in navy checked his phone. His expression changed. He leaned toward the woman, whispering. A moment later, both of them stepped back from Rachel a hair's breadth, like the ground near her had grown too hot. My mother's voice rose from the stairs, floating into the hall. "Rebecca, this is embarrassing. Lower your voice. We can talk like adults." "I am talking like an adult," I said, turning toward the steps. My parents appeared side by side, both dressed in their church-best gilt pressed flat beneath polite expressions. An adult whose name is on every paper in this building. "Family should share," Dad said, jaw tight. "Family should respect," I answered. "Can we please avoid making a scene?" Mom's smile was the kind that never reached her eyes. "Investors don't like drama. Investors don't like fraud either," I said. On my phone, a banner flashed. Entry ping. Paul Ramsey. Seconds later, a knock sounded at the door below, and uniformed officers stepped inside with the financial investigator behind them, badge visible, hands calm and open. "Ms. Rebecca Crawford," he asked, eyes lifting to meet mine. "Yes." He looked at the group. "We received a report of potential brand impersonation and forged contracts sent to investors. We'd like to ask a few questions and secure any materials related to the alleged solicitation." Rachel laughed a wild, breathless sound. "This is ridiculous. We're family." The investigator's face didn't change. Fraud isn't less illegal because it's familiar. "Paul, this is a misunderstanding," my mom said. "We're discussing a wedding venue." In a registered commercial showroom, he noted, scanning the space where investment materials are being presented. The woman with the tablet lifted a folder from her bag and held it out to him. "We received these last night. Digital signature, bank details, timeline. If it's not legitimate, I'd like to file a formal statement." Rachel reached for the folder. I caught her wrist midair, a gentle hold, nothing more than a pause. "The way you still a curtain in a draft so it doesn't tear, don't," I said quietly. She pulled back as if my touch had burned. Paul flipped through the documents, then looked at me. "Do you have originals to compare?" I tapped my folder. "Copies and mirrored files on a secured drive. You'll also find camera footage from the past 2 weeks capturing multiple entries without permission. The feed synced to your office." Sarah appeared at the top of the stairs like a shadow stepping into light phone already in hand. "And I'm the authorized secondary on the security system. I can transfer the footage now." Rachel's face went through 3 expressions in one breath: defiance, fear, calculation, before she steadied on appeal. "Beck, please," she said, voice softening, reaching for a script that had saved her 100 times. "We're sisters." I felt the weight of the word, the pull of it, how it had bound me into silence for years. I remembered the vintage dress I'd been punished for losing when I was 15, the late-night transfers to help cover her rent, the way Mom would whisper, "Don't make her feel small." I remembered all the times I'd swallowed my own voice to keep the peace. "I know," I said. "I know exactly what we are." The man in navy checked his phone again and looked at Rachel, then at me. "I'll be withdrawing my interest," he said, voice crisp. The woman with the tablet nodded, already drafting an email. One by one, the others edged away, polite murmurs, averted eyes, the kind of quiet that only shows up when truth tilts the room. The lilies smelled sharper all of a sudden, like sweetness had curdled. "Everyone, this is unnecessary," Dad said, voice rising. "You're ruining your sister's future." "She tried to start it with my name," I said. "That's not a future, that's theft." Paul nodded to one of the officers who positioned himself at the base of the stairs. "Ms. Rachel Crawford, I'll need you to come with us to answer some questions at the precinct." Rachel's mouth opened, then shut. She looked at Mom, then Dad for a foothold that wasn't there. Mom reached for her hand. Dad didn't move. My sister's eyes met mine, glassy. "You could have talked to me." "I did," I said. "You told me it was PR." She looked away. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but not today." The officers guided her toward the door. As she passed, she stopped in front of the table where the papers lay and glanced down at the pages, the signatures, the dates. For the first time that morning, she looked small. Their faces turned pale. The door closed behind them with a firm, final sound. The group dispersed in twos and threes, whispering shoes clicking on marble. Paul stayed reviewing a few more details with Sarah and me process chain of custody, who would contact whom next. It was all so calm, almost boring in its neatness. Mom lingered at the bottom of the stairs, hands folded, eyes shining with a fury she tried to disguise as concern. "There were other ways," she said. "You didn't have to humiliate us." "I didn't humiliate you," I said. "You did that the moment you walked into my place and treated it like a prize table." Dad finally spoke, voice tight as a knot. "You always think you're better." "No," I said. "I think I'm finished apologizing for being competent." They left without hugging me, without touching anything. The lilies kept standing tall in their vases like they hadn't just witnessed a family fracture. Up on the mezzanine, I gathered the papers back into a neat stack. My hands remembered every line, every signature, like reading an old map of a place I'd built with my own feet. Sarah stepped beside me and bumped her shoulder lightly against mine. "You okay?" "I'm steady," I said. And I was. Not calm exactly, not happy. Just steady, like a building that's already survived its first quake. Downstairs, a single light flickered as the system recalibrated after the door had opened and closed so many times. I watched the reflection of the city move along the glass, a slow ribbon of brightness that didn't ask permission to exist. Before we locked up, I walked to the center of the room and looked up at the skylight. It was the same view I'd shown 100 clients' skylight possibility. For years, I'd told women to claim the space they took up, to stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Today, I'd finally listened to my own advice. "Let's send the full packet to Alex," I said. "And then, let's get back to work." Sarah nodded. "We still have a housewarming." "Yes," I said, allowing myself the smallest smile. "We do." 6 months later, the skylight over my showroom glowed with winter light. The housewarming never happened, but something better took its place. A relaunch. Cameras flashed, guests drifted through with glasses of champagne, and a new banner hung above the entrance. Rebecca Atelier Reclaimed. Reimagined. People thought the name was poetic. I knew it was literal. Rachel had taken a plea deal. Fraud, forgery, false representation, 3 years probation, community service restitution. My parents had been fined for signing false guarantor papers. The tabloids had chewed on the story for weeks. Sister steals fashion empire from her own bloodline. It was messy, humiliating, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the urge to fix it. Sometimes silence is the cleanest kind of closure. The day she was sentenced, a letter arrived. It was handwritten, folded twice, smudged at the edges. "Beck, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just hope my daughter grows up knowing the woman who finally stopped the cycle. You didn't destroy the family. You saved what was left of it, Rachel." I kept the letter in my desk drawer beside the first design sketch I ever drew. Not to mourn, to remember. Mom called once after that. Dad didn't. I didn't block the number, but I didn't answer either. Some bridges don't need to burn, they just crumble quietly when you stop walking across them. Sarah and I stood by the mezzanine railing, watching the new collection glimmer under the spotlights. The crowd below looked up at the displays like they were something sacred. "Feels different," Sarah said. "Lighter." "It should," I said. "No ghosts left." She smiled. "And no uninvited guests." We laughed soft, easy, the kind of laugh that doesn't hide pain anymore. As the evening faded, I stepped outside. The Beverly Hills air was crisp, carrying the faint hum of traffic and distant music. Through the glass behind me, my name glowed in gold across the wall. Rebecca. Not a family heirloom, not a shared dream, mine. I thought about that day months ago when my mother said, "You'll regret this." She was wrong. Regret is what happens when you stay silent. I chose something else, peace. I used to think loyalty meant forgiveness, that keeping the family together mattered more than keeping myself whole. But I learned something in that showroom silence doesn't heal betrayal, it feeds it. When I stood there surrounded by the people who once called my success selfish, I realized the truth: boundaries aren't walls. They're doors that only open for those who deserve to walk through. Now, every time I unlock that glass door, I remember peace isn't something you beg for, it's something you defend. So if you've ever had to protect what you built from strangers or from your own family, I want to hear your story. Tell me in the comments, would you have done the same? And don't forget to subscribe, because the next story, it might just remind you how strong you really are.